Danica, my friend, my age-old friend.
Yes.
How are you going today?
Yeah, very well. I'm excited to be here.
Welcome to the lounge. It's really, really good to have you here, and it feels like I haven't, well, it doesn't feel like it's, the facts are I haven't done one of these for quite some time. And you're a person who interests me a lot. And so I'm really stoked to have you here on the lounge to chat all things yoga. Firstly, let's dive into, I said my age-old friend. We've known each other for about 10 years now.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've crossed paths.
We met at the studio that I originally practiced at. Illuminate Yoga. No longer exists. Has been taken over by our other amazing friend Dom.
Yes.
We met there some 10 years ago.
Yep.
Way back at the start.
Yep.
For me, it was at the start. Where was that for you in your journey?
That was literally the start of my journey. 10 years back is exactly when I dived into the yoga world for the first time.
Yep.
It feels like the first time I came up for water in my life, or came up for air from the water, just found some clarity and was like, oh, holy crap, I can breathe here. And this is what it feels like to breathe. And that's when I really found that space. And so that's when I would have met you and started to meet other people from the community. And that was when my practice was just kicking off.
Okay.
So very early days.
Yeah. And how old were you then?
10 years ago would have been 19.
19.
Oh, yeah.
19. Roughly. So amazing. I really wish that I had have found yoga at that age. Let's jump into pre this journey. So where did you grow up, firstly?
Yeah, so I grew up in outer Western Sydney. So I was born and raised in the Macquarie Fields area, kind of.
Oh, you're a Campbelltown girl.
Yeah, I'm a
I didn't know
Campbelltown
that. I
girl.
did not know that.
Yes.
Wow, Mac
Very
Fields.
proud, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, kind of. So I've always lived between either like Campbelltown, Liverpool, or Fairfield now. And yeah, I grew up as quite a misfit in all of those areas, you know. I
mean, no one would be able to pick that these days with all of your, right.
A black sheep everywhere I went. So, you know, we're all, you know, they try to shove us all into this kind of linear path, these slots on this linear path, and send us all forward. And I'm just like, no, I want to duck and weave and go in many different directions. I was very creative, very imaginative. I had very left of field interests. And never really connected to my body in my youth. I was an only child. My parents were super active, but I was like a bit of a bookworm and a creative, so they just let me do my thing. So, you know, 18, 19, I would have been fresh out of high school, and I was really, my nervous system was shut. I was anxious. I was depressed. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I felt like I was being forced to go to university. I had no passion, no interest. Well, I had passion and interests, but none of them fit within the model. The societal model
of this is Western Sydney and this is Australia.
Yeah.
So now what's your heritage, just so we can clear that up?
Fiji Indian.
And were your parents born here?
Parents are born in Fiji.
Okay, and what brought them here?
My dad was a civil engineer, so work brought him first to New Zealand and then to Australia in the early to mid 80s.
Okay.
And so they're honestly, as far as Fijian Indians go, they're quite open-minded. Well, I guess they got a lot more open-minded as time went along, and as I, you know, pushed those boundaries over time.
Right.
But they were pretty chilled. I wouldn't say they were too strict or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was it like as a female Fijian Indian in Campbelltown in the 90s growing up then?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I didn't feel it.
Okay.
I didn't feel it. I always felt like a part of the community.
I love that.
Guess. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.
I grew up in a cul-de-sac, you know, with all of the kids riding bikes and skateboarding and rollerblading.
Yep.
And so I kind of always had a little community.
Yep.
And it was only really when I moved out of Campbelltown that things started to hit me, because
is that right?
As you start to mix around with people of like higher socioeconomic status, there starts to be a little bit of judgment and, you know,
interesting.
I'm here and you're there. And so that's when I started to pick up on those divides in society. But growing up in Campbelltown was the best, I reckon.
Okay.
At least for me, the little pocket that I was in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. And so school, what was school like for you?
School felt like towards the end of school, felt like prison to me. It really did.
I hated it.
Hated it.
I hated it.
Yeah, just really wasn't for me. Really wasn't. I had some great moments, some great guidance in little pockets of school, but generally I didn't want to be there.
Okay. And so what was it for you that was at school then? The reason that drove you to be like act out, be like the little mischievous little monkey that you were, or was it just the influence of Campbelltown? What was it?
I don't know, man. I feel like it's just me. I've always felt that there was something more.
You just want to push edges,
yeah. Like
push
I always
boundaries.
felt that there was something more to what we were told. There's more to life. There's more to our understanding of the universe.
Yeah, okay.
I was always a little mystic, so I felt that, like science is everything and whatever. Like I was just like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more, and I need to chase it. I need to tap into it, but I don't know how.
Okay.
And so I pushed every wall I could.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so did you go all the way through to year 12?
Yeah, I did.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then where'd you go to for work from there?
So finished year 12, went to uni studying graphic design, dropped out after a few semesters.
I never knew that.
Went back to uni doing Japanese language, dropped out after a few semesters because I was like, what the hell am I doing? What the hell am I doing? I wasn't ready for academia. I needed to find myself.
Okay.
Yeah. I
resonate with you. I never went to uni because the concept of me doing another 4 years in a schooling institution just was not. I was not interested in that. Like I left and did short 3-month courses in IT, and that's what kickstarted me in my career. There's no way I was gonna. Yeah, I didn't even do the enroll. I didn't even finish year 12.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. Okay. And so sports? Yes. No.
No.
Dance?
Totally disconnected from my body.
Okay, so how did you land at yoga? What brought you to Illuminate that day?
Terrible mental health. Mental health, years of therapy in different settings, and my psychologist finally saying, girl, you need to connect to your body. Try yoga.
Okay.
Just see what it's like. And
I love these conversations. I get to find out so much about people I never knew that was your experience.
Yeah, huge. Mental health was a lengthy battle, and it's, it's a big part of, it was a big part of my life, and it's a big part of my family. So I was inundated with it from all angles. And then I think growing up without a connection to my body, without a somatic physical practice, I don't think you can do it, man. I think everybody needs to move their body, and I know that now. But back then I had no idea what to do with that energy, So there was a lot of self-harm, a lot of eating disorders, a lot of anxiety and depression and rebellion and making bad choices. And finally I listened to my psychologist, and I ended up at Illuminate, and everything changed.
Wow.
Everything
like
changed.
Very first class, you were like...
Yeah. Those first few classes would bring up a lot for me. I'd have to leave because it was, it was the first time I'd taken a deep breath. So my body was like, oh, what are you doing?
So were you more towards anxiety or more towards depression then? Both. Just both, all fucking ugh.
Yeah, all of the above. So I was having panic attacks in class and all that kind of stuff. But the moment
in the yoga class,
so I'd have to come out and regulate. And what was really beautiful is Amanda, who owned the studio, and the other teachers there really had an understanding of what was happening, and they handled it so lovingly and so gently and so well. They let me be in that. They supported me through that, and they welcomed me back in whenever I was ready. And I just remember the one class that really set in for me that like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be showing up to this studio day in and day out. I did a yin yoga class with Anna, who was teaching at the time.
Yes. Oh, Anna was, she was like, I felt Anna was like my yoga mum.
Yeah. She was everyone's yoga mama. Yeah, 100%. So she cultivated such a safe space in those yin classes for me to like feel safe enough to really drop out. So at the end of class, I fell asleep, and then she got everyone up and out of Shavasana and Namaste, everyone's out of the class, and I'm still there sleeping. So what she did is she put a blanket over me, tucked me in like a little burrito, and just lowered the lights and sat outside until I was ready to slowly come out of that. And when I came out, I was like, Anna, what happened? Like, she's like, it's okay, you needed that.
Yeah.
And that for me was like, where else can you get that?
Yeah, right.
What a safe space.
Yeah, and what an amazing recognition of what your body needed.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that people, one thing I try to say to people who are starting out with yin, if you fall asleep, you're doing it right. And they're kind of laughing. They're kind of, oh, no, I won't be that person. It's like, no. it's like I want you to be that fucking person.
I always say, if you fall asleep, I feel like I've done my job right.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like it really, it shows it like we're so conditioned to always be on, to always be alert, to always be ready. And the nervous system is wired in a way then that if you're in a public space, it's not gonna, you're that highly wound, it's not gonna allow you to properly fucking chill and come over to rest and repair, yeah? And so really that falling asleep is like such a demonstration of how far down the nervous system can come in its grounding and in its earthing and in its lower vibrations, because that's such an uncommon thing for people to feel that safe and that relaxed. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Okay, and then what I want to ask for you, just for the people, right? So we can, because I've also come across people who have panic attacks, etc. Yeah. What would say, if you were going to give some education to somebody who gets panic attacks, what would be 3 things that you would recommend about coming to a studio and like how they can manage that situation?
Yeah, amazing question. The first thing I would say is, if it happens like it used to happen to me, during class, don't be afraid to just get up and go to the bathroom or something. So don't feel pressure to stay and to be fighting that.
Okay, because it could make it worse.
Okay, yep. The second thing is breathe, right? That's what it's all about. Slow down your breath.
Right.
And thirdly, remember you're in the safest space, safest space. So if you need to reach out to the teacher and just for a minute be like, this is what I'm experiencing.
Totally.
God knows that like that person of all people can help you out in that moment. We have so much compassion for that. So many of us have experienced something similar, which is what's brought us to this practice. So don't be afraid to just take that time to come back to yourself, slow down your breath, and remember that the teacher can support you. I know, like, because I come across so many students in 8-9 years of teaching, however long it's been, I've seen students handle it well, and I've seen students actually leave because of that. I'm remembering a story of a student who left, and then unfortunately their mental health declined, and they took their own lives after that. And so it's just like, those are some of those pinnacle moments that can make or break a situation. Having that panic attack is not a failure. It's like, for me, that was the moment my life changed. When I learned how to navigate that in that space.
So you, through the practice of yoga, you learned how to navigate panic attacks.
Wow. And it changed my life.
Wow.
Because it's almost like that's the fork in the road. Can you do it or can you not?
Do you still have panic attacks?
Not panic attacks. Anxiety, yes. I've learn't that it's kind of like a genetic thing that's set in stone. I don't think it is for everybody. Unfortunately, it is for me. But just learning to, I think I work with it.
So would you attribute yoga to the fact that you don't have panic attacks anymore?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And what routes had you been down the medication route, and you were down the psychology route because it was your psychologist that recommended you to come to yoga, but you also medication,
counseling, psychology, psychiatry, medication, antidepressants, which did not help.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's one thing to hear that it can help, and I tell my story all the time, and as teachers, a lot of us are telling our story all the time, but to have a person who's finally followed the advice of the psychologist and landed there and have it, boom, it's done its job. It's just not part of your life anymore.
I never went back to the psychologist. When I found yoga, I never went back. So that's what I always try to send the message to people, because when you really struggle with mental health, you feel such a lack of autonomy. You feel like you're ruled by it, and you're lesser because of it. And you feel like that you don't have full agency over your life and your physiology and your state of being. And I just want people to know, like, man, you have total control. It just takes time and patience and love and compassion and being in the right space, having the right practices.
I hear you. One of the things that I've learned very much about mental health and the labels is to not own it. So I used to go around and say, I have depression, I suffer from depression. Whereas these days, as I've progressed, I've learned to say that depression is around at the moment. or I've experienced some depression, I take the labels away. So I don't own that fucking label of that thing, because it comes and goes.
Yes.
And as soon as we own the label, then we're giving it permission to stay around for longer.
Yes. So true. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so what was your time frame from when you first landed in a yoga class to when you realized, shit, my panic attacks are like less and less and less?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say I must have had, I don't know, like 5 solid, those panic attacks where I had to leave the class and sort of
in the studio,
and to kind of regulate. And then it started to become, it would come up, and then I would take some deep breaths during the practice, and then, it's kind of gone, and I can come back to the practice. And then eventually it became less about the panic and more about the practice.
Okay. And how many classes were you doing a week?
Oh, man. I would say I would be at the studio 3 to 4 times a week.
And was it all yin, or you mixed it up?
A lot of vinyasa, a lot of slow flow vinyasa, hatha.
Yeah.
I loved the strong stuff.
Mixed it up. Yeah, I love the strong stuff too. For a while, yin was a bit of a nightmare for me. I still went because I knew I needed to stretch my body because of the way that I was training. But if I wasn't having those experiences with my body, physically, I probably wouldn't have gone. I had to fight through yin at the start because I was like, fuck, this hurts. I had no idea how to practice yin. I just grabbed and pulled, and these days I get it that that's not it. But I was thankful that my body was the way that it was, because it kept me going back there. Yeah. And so for you, it was that recognition that you could. Did you have the panic attacks in the vinyasa all classes?
Good question. Yeah, I think it would be the yin and the vinyasa. Yeah, would just come up. Yeah. And I noticed if I'm moving through something really heavy in life, like this year's been a heavy year, I've had moments where for the first time in maybe, like 8 to 9 years, I've had that moment of, oh, holy crap, here it is.
Oh, no shit.
You hit that in the practice. But then I know now that I can just breathe and regulate my way through it. Yeah. It's a superpower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you hit the studio 3 to 4 times a week, constant. You're an afternoon practitioner, right?
Afternoon practitioner, yeah.
And I was a morning practitioner. That's why we never saw each other. We never met until I started teaching, because I started teaching a 4:30 time slot.
Yes.
And that's how we met. And so what was that? How long was that from when you started practicing to when you and I first met then?
I don't. What year did you start teaching?
Teaching. I started teaching I was certified in 2015. So I started teaching there in 2016 probably.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was straight away. No, it was probably straight away.
Yeah.
I think straight away.
Yeah, so it would have been a couple of years until I met you properly. Yeah. And then I got qualified in 2016. And
so from the start to that couple of years when we met, like where would you say you'd grown as a person? What were you noticing?
So movement was fundamental to my health and happiness. Yeah. I started practicing martial arts religiously. So yoga and martial arts was everything. I was either doing yoga or martial arts 5 to 6 days a week. That's what built my confidence and my love for life. And I started to find that I had a real passion for it. And I just, for the first time in my life, I was like, oh, here she is. This is who I am.
Yeah, right.
Like, this is who I am. Confident.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And would you say that the anxiety, was it the anxiety or the depression or both that were keeping you this smaller person, or was it just some beliefs from growing up? What do you reckon that was?
All of the above.
All of the above. Yeah, it's just such a
so
fucking
many
hard,
factors.
Yeah.
And just I felt so clouded until I found yoga, So like I don't know, and I'm like, oh, I'm starting to figure it out.
Yep.
And a few years in, I'm like, chase what feels good. That's what I learned. Chase what feels good. Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I did. Like I just kept turning up because I just kept noticing how happy I was, how joyful I was, how the voice in my head had changed the narrative.
Yes.
And it was, just follow what feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I see, and I'm not sure like the level of conversation that you have with people as they're in and out, but people love to put shit in front of, prioritize other shit in front of the way that they fucking feel.
Yeah. I can choose what feels good when I've done this, this, and this, achieved this, and tick this off.
No way. We've got to flip that on its head, right? ultimate priority should be the way that you feel, and everything else falls in line. And what I recognize is that as I start to do my practices that made me feel better, then the time that I was spending with people, the things that I had to do for them, became more efficient and had more quality, and therefore that like they were getting a better version of me.
So true.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fuck. Yeah. So talk to me about martial arts quickly. What martial arts do you do?
Yeah, so I was practicing like kickboxing / Muay Thai. Dabbled in jiu-jitsu and MMA, though I wouldn't say I was any good at either of those, but just mostly Muay Thai was my absolute favorite. So I must have really practiced for about 5 years.
Wow.
Until because I was like very petite and like hypermobile, super flexible, but weak. Right. And so I broke enough toes and pulled enough muscles and fractured enough whatevers to be like, all right, I need to stop and build some strength. So I loved my martial arts journey. Absolutely did so much for me. Yeah. And it's one thing I'd love to go back to at some point. Yep. But yeah, it did a lot for me. Okay.
And so somewhere then around 2 to 3-ish years, 2016, you decided to go and do teacher training. And what brought you to that decision?
Yeah, so sitting around at Illuminate Yoga after class one day, a bunch of the teachers were there.
And Amanda said, hey, I've seen you practice and have you ever thought about teaching?
Literally.
That's what she fucking said to me.
Oh, honestly, the transformative power of that woman's words. And the good thing about Amanda was she had that eye for. I feel like she could see through you and see your potential. I think that was one of her gifts.
She's gonna love Amanda. I hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy the adoration that we have for you when you get the opportunity to watch this back. Okay, and so Amanda sparked this idea in your head.
I think it was like Amanda, Anna, and maybe Becky or something. They were like, "Have you ever considered?" Amanda said exactly what you said, and they're like, "Yeah, have you ever considered doing it?" I was like, "No, why? Why would I have considered that?" And they're like, you've got a dedicated practice, you love it, you're always here, like, why not? Yep. And I couldn't answer that question, why not? So I was like, let's just see how it goes. And it was the best thing I ever did.
Who did you do your training with?
I did it at In Yoga in Surrey Hills with Nicole and Rod.
Shout out to In Yoga. Yes. Very, very big time major studio of Sydney. Yeah, we've had many a teacher come through here that are in yoga trained.
Yes.
Amazing. And so what was your big takeaways then from training? Did you do training because you then wanted to teach, or what? Like, it's one thing for someone to go, hey, have you thought about it? But then what went through your mind? Because what went through my mind was, oh, that'd be cool because I'll know more about yoga, but I'm not going to be a fucking teacher.
Yeah. I think I was the same as you.
Okay.
I think I was the same as you. And then delving into the teaching elements of it, I was just like, you know what? I actually love this. Yeah. I love this. And the biggest takeaway I would say from yoga teacher training, apart from freaking everything, because it's such an amazing time, but I would say I found my voice.
Yes.
Because I remember I look back to my early youth, like primary school, and I used to actually love public speaking and I wasn't afraid to get up in front of people. And then high school and anxiety and all that kind of stuff, I became one of those people that would cry before having to give a speech, or standing in front of someone would bring me so much dread to say something in front of a little crowd or whatever. And then I found that teaching yoga in that setting during yoga teacher training, I was one of the people who could most easily project their voice and share their personality in that setting. I didn't feel like I was putting anything on. I felt that was another moment where I was like, who is this? How did she do that? And this feels really good. And so I went straight out of 1 month yoga teacher training and straight into teaching, and I've not stopped since.
I love that you keep bringing us back to this point where you're saying, oh my God, who is this? Here she is. I love this, right? Because often as teachers, we're saying to people, you're going to learn about yourself through the practice of yoga. Yeah. And we talk about this concept of unity, yoga is unifying all of your parts. And so you're finding these different characters and different personalities and different qualities within you that would have been, you're saying then they've been lost for a little bit.
Yeah. And the stuff on top of it,
stuff
and you don't know how to let it go.
Yeah. Right. Gets layered. Yeah. And we lose these parts. Yeah. Wow. I love that. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so then, so that's a lot about practice and becoming a teacher. And so, but while you were going through this 2 or 3 year period, in the initial stages. What did life look like outside of the studio? Like, what were you do? Did you notice changes in relationships with parents or with friends or with what? Talk to me about that.
Oh my goodness. The biggest transformation took place from that point of finding yoga and then all the way to doing yoga teacher training. I almost separated entirely from my old life and built a new one from scratch. It was really intense, as in like every relationship that I had from my youth, I let go.
Okay.
I felt that I was growing and it was rapid growth.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the people around me weren't supporting that. And so I was somehow brave enough to just move away from that and go into this little like almost hermit mode, pull away and immerse myself in these practices that were really healing me. So there was still, a lot of, ups and downs and still a little bit of rebellion here and there, but definitely starting to put the pieces together and build something for myself. So just a lot of growth. And then I started to find the places that resonated, the people that resonated, how to relate better to my family, what kind of person I wanted to be friends with. Like, these are things that I'd never really contemplated. And
you were just friends with people because they'd come into your life and they were around and whatever.
And definitely people I related to and vibed with, but I've found, and it is still a huge value of mine, that growth, that being able to be in a space where that cultivates growth is fundamental to my existence.
Yeah, wow.
And so I had to seek that. I had to feel that out. How is my space cultivating growth? My family, my friends, my practices, my work.
So to wrap that up in a little bubble, would you say that you started to recognize that the power of the herd can sometimes bring you down to places where you don't want to be?
Yeah.
Okay.
I needed to have my own little, carve my own way through life.
And then if you, what now, do you still see any of these people? You just drifted away. Nothing ever happened.
Drifted away. Nothing ever happened.
Where do you hold a place for them in your heart though, where you see them and respect them for who they are?
100%. And I've had to do a lot of work surrounding like who I used to be and what I used to do and who I used to hang out with and how they used to make me feel. And I mean, because there is such a huge separation between how I was and how I am.
Yep.
I think if you asked anybody in high school, who's the last person you'd expect to end up where they are? I think most of them would say me. I really believe that. So there's a big process around that, It's almost like I've had to grieve so many different parts of who I was and my life and my friendships. And I've done a lot of work in different regards. I've reached out to some of those people. I've reconnected with family members that I drifted away from. So, there's been a lot of reconciliation and understanding and forgiveness, and it's ongoing, but I really have blossomed into a new community and a new way of being, a new way of living.
I love that.
Super supportive.
For sure. I think it's important because that happens often through a journey of yoga. We start to realize as people that perhaps some of the guys or girls that we're hanging around might have bad influence on us. And did you go through a period of I'm going to help them?
Yeah.
And it wasn't received.
Wasn't received.
Yeah, okay.
And I had to learn that lesson of you can't help anybody that isn't ready to change and doesn't know how to help themselves.
Yeah.
And, that's where a lot of the resentment lay. But now I know that wasn't about that.
Yeah.
It was about me.
I have similar experiences where I talk to very few of the people that I used to hang around. I didn't really go down the route of trying to help or trying to, because I was just like, I could see how deeply ingrained they were with the booze and the parties and the this attitude and that attitude. So I didn't really, but I think it's important that we recognize that those people have been in our life for a reason to show us a very particular thing. Yeah. It feels like you do too. Like I still hold a special place, even though there's a lot of people I don't talk to anymore. I still hold a very special place for them in my heart because we had amazing experiences. At the end of the day, I came to the recognition that it wasn't good for me to continue down that path. But
And sometimes
without them, I wouldn't. Without those relationships, I wouldn't necessarily know what the let's use the word wrong way to go was for me. You know what I mean?
Yes, and sometimes it's not even that they're in a negative state.
They're
just
not
in a different place.
Yeah, different
and I've got to be
direction.
here, and they're there, and like that's okay as well.
Yeah. Very interesting, isn't it? How
So I've done a lot of like hermit work, work to like separate entirely from the world, figure out who the hell I am, and then come back to the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now talk to me about the in-training, in yoga training. Is there's a 3-month? Did you do a 1 month intensive?
1 month intensive.
1 month intensive, epic. Did you go straight into teaching from there?
Straight into teaching.
Illuminate.
At Illuminate,
And because then there was a period where we had
a brief overlap. I think when I started, you would have just finished off and then opened One Big Heart.
Oh, I left. I waited about a year or so.
Yeah.
I waited about a year or so from leaving Illuminate to doing what I was doing here. So you had some wonderful recognitions and awakenings about this other version of you that was dying to fucking come out of you, and how did that flourish and grow then in the teaching space?
Oh, so yeah, I don't know. It just kind of like kicked off this snowball effect of positive change in my life. I mean, again, like finding my voice, finding my confidence, finding my space that I thrive in, finding a practice that I'm actually really good at. You know, I do well at teaching. And then from there, just finding my passion for like health and movement, you know, anatomy and physiology. So then I went on to do my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness and health coaching, and then jumped the gun and actually went back to university at 26.
Yeah.
Something I thought I'd never ever do.
Okay.
To study sport and exercise science.
Okay.
Went back to uni, and for the first time, absolutely freaking loved every second of it.
Right, because you found your thing.
I found my thing. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. We're never too, and I'm not to say 26 is old, but we're never too old to start learning again, right?
So true.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah.
How cool. And then, so what else outside of teaching in the space? Like what else are you doing? You coaching in some other ways?
Yeah. So I do a lot of, I just kind of blanket term it as mental and physical health. Like I'm a mental physical health provider. So I mash together a lot of mental and physical health-based practices, a lot of like nervous system regulation, breathwork, meditation, personal training, yoga, a little bit of everything, and provide that depending on the context, so corporate, private, whatever.
I love that.
And then I also am an artist.
Yes.
So I paint, I draw, I illustrate, I dabble in graphic design. I wouldn't call myself a graphic designer. I craft jewelry, and
I love it.
Cool.
So life for you on the other side of yoga, well, with the addition of yoga into your life, is like really expanded.
Yes.
I see you, Danica, I see you as a very free-spirited woman.
Yeah.
You know, I'm often where we're checking in during the week and you're like, yeah, just come back from a 3-day festival out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, and it was cool. And it was, you're a person that just goes with the flow of life, but at the same time has a very distinct, what I feel is direction.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely very driven, very motivated.
Yep.
I have a lot of strong goals that I'm always working towards in amongst that.
I see sometimes people from the outside of yoga looking in, thinking that we in here are a bunch of dreadlock growing like hippie tree huggers without any, we're just being blown around by the wind. Yeah. That's not your experience though, is it?
No.
Even though that is part of what you do.
Yes. I get that a lot because I love that. I love diving into that side of life.
Yeah.
And I wish I could be more like that. A lot of people are actually really surprised to know that I'm quite like left-brained oriented. I'm quite intellectual and like thinking based.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily the super flowy, the super like, I'll do whatever I want to. It's like I like to plan, I like structure, I like routine and discipline. I really thrive under that model. So I'm intellectually inclined, and I find that the creativity and the yoga and the flow is my balance.
Yep.
I need those as practices to make sure that I do not end up super rigid and trying to control life, which is definitely an inclination of mine.
So okay. So speaking in the psychology circles, like anxiety is a repercussion of of a feel of a lack of control.
Yes.
Right. And so there's this contemplation that, well, if that situation happens, I don't know who I'm going to be in that situation. I don't know how I'm going to handle that. So that would speak to your previous dealings with anxiety, would speak to this need to have a level of control. But same with intelligence and like I feel I operate very, very similarly. I have drive and direction.
Yes.
I feel like I very much know my purpose in this place. Yeah. I know my purpose in this life.
Amazing.
Do you resonate with that word, purpose? Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Purpose is very highly associated with longevity. So sometimes they go into those Japanese islands or Italian hillsides, and they ask the centurions, the people who are living over 100, and they say, like, well, tell me about yourself. What do you eat? What do you drink? How do you think? And one of the biggest things they found is that they all have a sense of purpose. So it really keeps you going.
Yep.
It keeps you healthy.
And I feel that for me, and it sounds like a little bit for you too, like yoga is what brought me to purpose. Yeah. That's not to say that everybody who starts yoga, they realize that their purpose is to teach yoga, right? Yeah. Obviously, you're sort of talking to two teachers here, yes. but this concept of, not this concept, this practice of going in through our time on the mat, hearing parts of self, stripping back parts of self, understanding more parts of self, reigniting and meeting older parts of self, bring us to this better formed picture of who we are. And within the center of that, like, purpose is just starts to pour out of that space.
Yeah, so true.
Fuck yeah.
I love that. I love that image.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of yoga. Like, I mean, a lot of people kind of they look down on the fact that they're like, yoga is not what it used to be. Ancient yoga focused so much less on asana, and asana is really, it's lost the essence of yoga. And I'm like, no, like, first of all, for the modern day human, like the physical practice of yoga, asana, it's fundamental, man. We need to come back to our body
because we don't.
No, we're not. Removed, and we glorify being dissociated. We really do.
Yeah.
But like everything that ties into that, the philosophy and the introspection and the understanding, it's just inherent to the practice. And so I really do believe that it's a beautiful pathway to the self.
Yeah. And speaking of philosophy, like you mentioned a key word that I take a lot of from the philosophy, and that was discipline. You mentioned discipline before.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself implementing discipline? What does discipline mean to you? How does it play out in your life?
Yeah. So I am a very practical, tactical person. I believe that all change fundamentally comes down to physiology. We're trying to create neural pathways that are more well-traveled and that are healthier, fundamentally better. So the more we repeat something, the more set in stone that way of being, that pattern will be. And so discipline, the act of repetition, and repetition with intention, so you understand why you're doing something, is inevitably going to lead to positive change. And that's just the essence of discipline. You've got to do it. You've got to do it over and over again. And you've got to make sure you know why you're doing it and what you're doing is the right thing for you.
Yeah.
And it can only ever lead to good things.
So are you telling me that the asana, the physical practice on the mat, is what leads us to be a disciplined person?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's one way to practice discipline, because the things that you show up for by showing up on that mat over and over, it's like 1 week it'll be the heat that's getting to you. The next week it'll be your weakness. The next week it'll be your monkey mind. The next week it'll be, I think I'm freaking sick of whatever it is. There's always something that you just need to come back to. Why are we here? We're here to breathe. We're here to regulate our way through this super freaking challenging practice and come to some sort of state of wholeness and stillness.
So I'm going to throw a curveball at you here. I'm going to ask you potentially a deep question. For someone, what would you say is the life experience of someone who suffers not having discipline? What would you say the life experience, if you wrap that up in a couple of words?
I mean, I would say lack of purpose.
Lack of purpose.
I would say that.
Lost.
Yeah, lost.
Confused.
Foggy.
Lost, foggy, confused.
Yeah, and kind of just kind of being thrown around by the waves and tides of life.
So life is happening to them, not creating life and life happening for us. Yes, I think that sums it up really well, really well. So if that's you, if any of what we just said out there resonates with you, the discipline is what you need, and that's discipline and punishment are two different things, right? Discipline is what you need. The place you find the discipline is on the mat, by showing up for yourself on the days you don't want to, going through the hard work, and sometimes the hard work is the yin, right? The yin can be, the stillness and the gentleness and the softness can be, like for those who are out there and they're super, super wired, living highly, highly on stress and they don't even know it, like the people who are out there that sleep like 2 or 3, 4 hours a night every night, and they think that that's just normal and they've got to be involved in every single thing that happens and blah, blah, blah. The hard work for them is the yin.
It's almost like the most rebellious thing they can do. It's like to come in there and like, lie down, be comfortable, and
don't do
nothing.
anything. Yeah. So the hard work isn't necessarily sweating bullets in hot yoga. Wow. Yeah, I love that. I think we're very, as modern people, because and I think because of our schooling system, we're very we're very removed from what the actual word discipline means. And we confuse it so much with punishment, and we want to stay away from anything to do with discipline. But it's those people with the super busy mind that don't know how to make it quiet, that's a demonstration of a massive lack of discipline, to not be able to have the tools and the practices to soothe that and to drop it off. So what does life look like as a holistic thing for you now? You're living in Fairfield. You teach here. You teach at a handful of places. You got, and you do your private, your corporate, and all that sort of stuff on the side. What's a typical day in the life of Danica? You know what? We haven't even dived into your birds. Birds.
Multiple, a typical day in the life is soaking up as much sunshine and outside time as I can. Spending time with the birds, because they connect me to, I think any pet, but really birds, they connect you to such a deep space of presence. They want you to sit down and do nothing else and be with them. And the second you look away, they know, and they give you a little nip and they're like, hey, come back to me.
Are you telling me that birds are demanding?
Oh my goodness.
I would have no idea.
Fully, you have no idea.
Okay.
Spending time with them, connecting to nature, being creative, so expressing myself creatively, painting, drawing, crafting, nourishing myself right. If I can get in the water, and trying to figure out what the next step is, in the sense that I'm like, okay, what does my heart desire now? What's something new I can create? What's a new path that I can carve out for myself? I feel very much like I craft my own way through life. I've got to do it non-linear. I can't do what's already been done, but I got to do it my way.
Do it your way,
So I'm like, what's next for me? I'm always trying to dream that up. I'm goal setting. I'm strategizing. I'm working out, taking care of my body.
Love that. So you train in the gym?
I train at home.
You train at home?
Yeah.
Weights, etc.?
Yeah.
Cool. And not anymore fighting?
Not anymore fighting. No, I've got to take care of my body now.
What's your personal practice look like?
My personal practice, it waxes and wanes.
It
does. Yeah, I've noticed that, and I've learned to allow that. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot more strength training and sprinting than I am yoga. But I know that that's just building up once again, a strong, stable foundation for me to return to the practice, because I am quite hypermobile. So I can feel when okay, I'm getting a little bit too lax.
Let's really?
Bring it back
you got to manage
and then
that.
come back to it.
Right.
But I always return to a really strong practice at home that I'm doing 2 to 3 times a week. I like to practice before I come in and teach, just so I'm there.
Yeah, totally.
But look, call to more yin at home at the moment. So I'm finding these really juicy, not probably regular enough, but these long 90-minute yin sessions. For them, like you say, for the mind. That's my space of silence. That's been really, really beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. What would be 3 ways that you could suggest to people to start to come out of their mind and get into their body?
Yeah. So the first thing would be learn to connect with your breath.
Learn to connect with your breath.
Every single day, because the breath is the key. It's the key that unlocks the door to regulation, right?
Cool.
So it's the link between the mind and the body, and it's the direct effect that we have on our physiology.
Sweet. We've got some breathwork videos on the YouTube channel. There's one for stress and anxiety, and there's one for depression and trauma.
Yeah.
Cool. So breath.
Question again?
Three things that are going to help people come out of their mind and into their body.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is related, but like find your way of connecting to your body. So what is it? Is it martial arts? Is it swimming? Is it yoga? Is it whatever the practice is? I believe everybody needs to be moving their body as often as they possibly can, moving well, moving in many different ways. So
Absolutely.
Everybody's got to have a physical-based practice. So figure out how you love to move your body and do that as often as you can.
Could be dance.
Could be dance. Could be dancing in the mirror at home, like whatever it is. Find a way to love moving your body.
Cool.
Yeah, okay. So I'm like, what do I pick for the third one? Get into nature.
Get into nature.
Just ground, right? Like literally the act of grounding has such a direct effect on physiology.
Absolutely.
Get your bare feet on the grass or go for a swim. Get your butt into nature and just let it do its magic.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I find a lot of respite with a 30-minute lay down in the sun.
Yes.
Yeah. Like just soaking up those rays and cool. Amazing. 3 simple tips. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Danica, thank you for sharing your story today.
Oh, you're so
I
welcome.
feel like there was a whole little kit and caboodle in there that I was completely unawares of. I didn't actually realize how much crossover you and I have in our personalities and our characteristics. I want to say that I love having you here on the teaching team. I know that our students are coming to me all the time and telling me how amazing your classes are.
Love them.
I love that we met 10 years ago and that we found a way to finally get you through. It was Will, wasn't it? Will contacted you. It was like, I found this studio.
Yes.
So big shout out to Will.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing Danica back to me so that we could get her in at One Big Heart. People, if you want to practice with Danica, she is in here on Thursday nights.
Thursday evenings,
Thursday evenings. Danica, Bird, thank you so much for today.
Thank
it's
you
been
for
wonderful.
having me on.
Come in.
I appreciate you so much. Sorry, I'm sweating.